Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a daily reading for December the 27th. And the purpose of this reading is to give you a brief piece of advice or to help guide your overall focus for the day. If you are looking for a longer, more detailed reading, please check out my channel. If you're new to pick a card readings, the way this works is that you'll choose from one of the three piles here, and then if you scroll down to the description, there will be timestamps for each card that you can click on to skip ahead. If you feel compelled to choose more than one of these, that's totally fine. Please follow your intuition. There's probably some good advice in each of these piles, but one of them just may be more accurate to your situation. So I've also added 3 crystals to help you decide. Today I have Serpentinite, Bronzite, and Chalcopyrite. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds of silence so that you can meditate on your choice if you wish. And once you have your choice in mind, go ahead and scroll down to the description and click on the timestamp for your choice. So we're going to go ahead and start the 30 seconds right about now. Alright, so if you have not already done so, please go ahead and make your choice, and then scroll down to the description and find your timestamp. So, for card number 1, if you chose the Serpentinite, you're going to have, this is the Knight of Coins in the reverse, and that is the Hierophant in the reverse. And then you have the Page of Cups. This is a new deck, the Pagan Cats, which is just too much fun to pass up. So for your current situation here, you have this Knight of Coins in the reverse. Knight of Coins has a very determined and focused energy. In this type of a situation, it could be a little bit of resistance to this. So it could be, not really wanting to put in the work for what you need or to get what you want done. Or in some way not being quite determined enough, being like distracted or taken off your focus a little bit. And understandable, because what we're seeing here for your challenge is this Hierophant in the reverse. So this is, being a little bit of having maybe a problem with authority, rebelliousness, that kind of thing. So it could be that, first of all, the Hierophant is all about laying down moral law, but not necessarily moral law as like the most extreme stuff, like murder and thievery and things like that. Although most of the time, the moral law of the clergy, the Pope, religion will overlap with the legal law, but where the difference comes in is where the religious institutions and traditions and everything sort of put this this premium on manners, on a particular way of carrying yourself, on what's right behavior and wrong behavior, but not necessarily illegal, right? So you're not required by law to be a good person, but being a good person, it helps social cohesion. It helps you to have a happy home life and family, and just makes things a little bit smoother in the world around you. And so that's the reason for these types of laws and ideas. In the reverse position here, this resistance, it may be because you were around somebody who's a little overzealous, who turned you off to these ideas. You became a little rebellious because, it's very likely somebody was imposing these ideas on you because they were more concerned with the ideas themselves than they were with the reason for this way of being. So, in other words, again, this is supposed to facilitate harmonious relationships, but a lot of people use it more as a battle cry. And that's sort of the wrong way to go about this, because it defeats the very purpose of the endeavor to establish a sort of morality or something like that. So there has to be this careful, practiced balance and reserve that comes with being a sort of keeper of the faith or keeper of the traditions. And when that is abused, then it has a tendency to engender this sort of rebellious spirit. And so that could be very much a distraction for you. You may be sort of thrown off by having other people tell you what to do or that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. I mean, a perfect advice to this would be is if I was in this situation and, I really enjoy reading the tarot cards and maybe even wanted to make a serious career out of it or something like that, but my family, being religious, disapproved, and it bothered me, right? It distracted me to the point where I didn't put enough effort into it, and instead I was fighting with my family a lot and not getting things done. So that's the kind of dynamic that you're in here, where whatever it is that you need to be getting done, it's being distracted by having to adhere to these traditions or ideas that are very likely imposed by family or clergy, that type of thing. So it's just feeling some pressure there that's affecting you negatively. Your advice card here is this Page of Cups. So Page of Cups, there's a little white kitty here. This card reminds me of like the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, who shows up almost out of nowhere with this curious surprise. And there's often like a fish sprouting out of the cup randomly, and it's it takes you down a little rabbit hole sometimes, and on a journey of new sort of refreshing emotional fulfillment, because it's like in Alice in Wonderland, for example, you can look at that story in all sorts of metaphorical ways, but a lot of it is just supposed to be nonsense, really. It's nonsense for the sake of nonsense, right? And that nonsense is kind of the point, and it's somehow really, really emotionally satisfying for there to be all this nonsense. For speaking of religions, there's a practice of sort of speaking in tongues, and a lot of people try to make it seem more highbrow by saying it's like a language of the angels or something like that. But I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and it might be a language of the angels, but to me it seemed much, much more silly, and it reminded me very much of when I was a little child and I would just make funny noises, just making funny noises, because why? It feels good. It refreshes your perspective, and who cares if it's not for any reason or purpose. The nonsense has a way of refreshing your perspective and livening things up a little bit, making life feel a little bit more worth living, because if you walk around with this real seriousness all the time, life can be really a drag. And the way to get over that is by being a little silly, and there's definitely an aspect of life that calls for that. So this is inviting you to basically have a little bit more of a lighthearted attitude toward these types of things. Don't take things too seriously. Find the humor in the situation, or make light of the situation in some particular cat, because cat in some particular circumstance, because this little kitty here, he looks like he's kind of just had it, right? He's like, oh, I'm so over this. So poke him a little bit and make things a little bit more fun. Okay, that one went really long, so let's go ahead and move on to card number 2. It's like I've tried to make these a little bit shorter, but they just keep getting longer. Okay, so card number 2, if you chose Bronzite, this pretty interesting looking stone here, you are going to have, okay, you have the Knight of Swords. This, I believe that's Temperance. Yeah, Temperance. And you have the World in the reverse. Okay, so the Knight of Swords here is, this is about, it's another hard, focused, determined energy. This one, however, it's more surrounding like an idea or a feeling that you know something, some knowledge. So a lot of times this is a kind of a very crusader type of an energy. You have a message and you're wanting to spread it, and you're fully confident in it. You're not questioning it or anything. You're just sort of running with it. And so, this is a wonderful energy. It's focused. It sometimes can be a little bit careless, or like rushes in thinking it knows something but is a little bit mistaken. But it's not in the reverse, so it's very likely that you do have your head on straight here to a degree, but it can be a little bit quick. So that is the sort of weakness of this card. So you have to remember to be careful when this energy comes up. It's not asking you to necessarily slow down or not be so passionate about it, but it is asking you to make sure that you spend a little bit of your spare time making sure you have your ducks in a row, so to speak. Again, there's a fine line between verifying what you know and doubting yourself, so tread that line carefully. But what you have for your challenge here is this Temperance in the reverse. And this is, Temperance is about a sort of mixing of opposites, which is, it can be kind of a violent reaction. And that violent reaction is somehow beneficial in the long run, which, like when you're tempering a sword, you are hitting it with a hammer and heating it up. And this process is kind of, it may feel damaging in the current moment, but in the long run, it's something that is making you stronger instead of actually breaking you down. So the reverse meaning, the reverse meaning of that, you're resisting this sort of idea. You may be wanting things to go a little bit smoothly, but I think that, talking about this idea that you've been running with a little bit, it needs a little resistance. You're moving really fast here, so you can afford to meet with some external resistance, and that's actually kind of a better way of approaching it than doubting yourself or slowing down. Allow others to challenge your ideas and sort of sharpen your sword by defending them or testing them or just putting them into action, right? So allow the sort of difficult circumstances around you, and I know this is a challenge card, but it's also a little bit of an advice here, because allow the challenges that you are approached with, or the resistance that you're approached with, to be an opportunity for you to hone your ideas and hone your methods of persuasion and all of these things. So your advice card, you have this the World, and it's in the reverse, and that means that, so the World is the completion of a cycle, but it also is the beginning of a new cycle. I really love how they depict it in this, where the little kitty is imagining himself exactly as he is. And that's pretty cool to me. I like that. So this is in the reverse an indication that you're like really almost there. You're onto something strongly, but there's a little bit of some loose ends, some things that are not quite finished that need to be kind of tied up in order for you to progress. And keep in mind, this is not an ending. This is just the start of a new beginning, right? It's close one chapter and open the next. It's not really the end of anything. And there's an infinity symbol here, which kind of symbolizes that as well, that it just keeps going. So yeah, whatever it is about this this idea or something that you're pressing others with, allow it to be challenged and allow yourself to navigate that space, and that will bring you into this sort of new era. You have to figure out a way to be successful in the face of this sort of almost annoying or painful opposition to move on to that next phase in your life. So that's about it for card number 2. Okay, so for card number 3, if you chose the Chalcopyrite, which is it's a mixture of copper and pyrite, I believe, and it comes out with all these beautiful colors. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's purple and green and blue and sort of like a copperish gold color. It's one of my favorite stones. Also called the Mystic Stone. Okay, so if you chose card number 3, you have the Knight of Cups. I believe we had knights for every single one of these readings. That's pretty cool. Knight of Cups in the reverse, 10 of Cups, and the Ace of Swords. Okay, so the Knight of Cups here, generally a really go with the flow, even romantic type of an energy. In the reverse here, there's a little bit of a resistance, so there may be a need for you to, or are you feeling like you need to kind of control things a little bit. I love how he's riding a turtle in this case. But there's always this sort of free-flowing, even aloof type of an energy with this, which you're not as receptive to that as you could be. And being that this card came up, you have the potential, sure. But there may be some worries about the future. What you have in your challenge card here is this 10 of Cups, which is, this ultimate emotional fulfillment. This is a happy home. And a really positive image. So, challenging you or crossing you, influencing you, there could be, these parents could feel very protective over their little young ones, and they could be trying to control or dominate the situation a little bit too much instead of just like going with the flow and letting it be what it is. So that could be definitely a source of these feelings here of wanting to be a little bit more type A than normal, or a little bit more controlling over the situation. But this part of this happy home, part of this emotional fulfillment of the 10 of Cups relies on a flow, on a good release and faith and trust of intuition and all of that. That is definitely a foundation in this home. Protection is definitely an aspect of it, but you can't let that aspect grow out of control. Think of that as just one of these 10 other cups. You should have at least 9 others. And so if you are spending a little too much of your effort in that one particular area, it can kind of smother the situation, and you can end up kind of shooting yourself in the foot or interfering with the very happy vibes that you're trying to create, and you don't want to do that. So you have to learn to let go a little bit and allow, part of growth, especially if you have a family, part of growth is making mistakes and allowing those mistakes to happen. So it's really more about, if you really want to think about being a good protector or guardian, it's not about preventing harm. It's about fostering situations in which, or preventing failure. It's about fostering situations where failure can be done in a way that is not, ultimately harmful, in a way that is, it might hurt temporarily, but it's better for you to learn a small lesson of pain that is temporary than to end up, having some huge negative outcome later on in life. And I'm not even, talking about punishment or that kind of thing, but, your children are going to fall down from time to time. They're going to hurt themselves. And, better to let them do that than to shelter them too much to where they end up lashing out later and that kind of thing. So it's just, you want to find a way to be able to give that freedom, the freedom to make mistakes, the freedom to learn, because we like to think that others can learn just from listening to us. And yes, they can, but that knowledge is always very superficial until someone actually experiences or learns things for themselves. So, I'll be a parent in February, and when that occurs, one of the strategies that I have, which I've kind of learned from experience in my own life and having been raised by two very different parents, is that I definitely learn things better if I was given the opportunity to learn those things myself rather than just being told what the right way was. That never really worked for me. And I suppose some people are different and react better to that, but to me, it never was any good for me to just be told something. If you really wanted to piss me off as a child, just tell me to do something because I said so. I wanted to know. And I had no problem following the rules if the rules made sense, if there was a good explanation for why not to do things. But, very, very often people lack that sort of patience. They lack that faith to be able to treat you as an equal or a human with respect and all that. Especially when you're a child. So, give that respect and you will get it a lot more easier. Now, your advice card here is this Ace of Swords in the reverse. So, this is resistance to a sort of new idea to you. So, you may be battling, if this is a parenting situation, and I don't know why I'm feeling like it is, but if it's not, just use it as sort of a metaphor for whatever your particular situation is. But in the metaphor of the parenting here, if you were raised a particular kind of way, you may then carry that forward and feel like that's the right way to do it moving on forward. That you're not receptive to a sort of new idea or a new way of doing things. And a lot of times, if we're honest, we step back, that kind of reasoning is very egoic, and it's this idea that, well, I'm just fine, so I'm going to do it the way that I was. And there is definitely some, evolutionary backing to that idea because, even if it didn't work out as well as it possibly could, it did work in your situation, right? You're here. You've made it to this point. So it is at least partially effective. But, new ideas are also worth exploring and worthwhile. And certain people will have more or less of a taste for this kind of thing, about trying something new, trying some new method or strategy to achieve what you want or what you're trying to accomplish. And, the saying is the fortune favors the brave, right? So the brave are the ones trying something new, and that's another thing that's backed by evolution, is that trying new things and accomplishing something that hasn't been accomplished before creates a whole new branch on the tree of life. So there's definitely a balance there. But remember that swords have two edges. So the overall message here is definitely to back off on the trying to control things a little too much and have a little faith that things can work out better, that new ideas can be successful, right? And that's about it for that card and for your reading for today. So thank you for watching. Please leave me some comments. Let me know if you enjoyed. And I will see you guys tomorrow for your next reading.